Hello and welcome to the TechBytes audiocast. My name's Tim and I'm from the Openness blogazine, and with me is Dr. Roy Shestowitz from the TechBytes website.
It's Friday night and I'm gonna get sauce. I fought the troll and the troll lost. I fought the troll and the troll lost. He tried to boss me and was out-bossed. I fought the troll and the troll lost. I fought the troll and the troll lost. Underneath his creeper bridge, hoping goats will cross. Quoting Ashcroft and Tom Ridge, I fought the troll and the...
Right, good evening and welcome to episode 46 of the TechBytes audiocast. I'm Tim, I'm here with Roy and Rusty, and hopefully very soon Gordon, who we've had a bit of trouble connecting to tonight with a few internet connection issues of his own. So without further ado, we're going to go straight into the show. Roy, I'm hoping that you've got something to start us off with, but if not, Rusty will be the second port of call. Roy, have you got a topic you would like to throw in the mix?
One person who I basically have been following on the internet for the past 1-2 years, I think, is a person called Rob. What's his first name? I don't know. His last name is Poxon, and that's how usually, well, that's what people tend to refer to him as, but he's been arguing with trolls in his blog for the past, let's say 2 years or a year and a half. And they've been giving him a hard time because he's been advocating Linux, which of course, as you know, is one of the greatest sins you can commit on the internet. Especially if you talk about things like Windows and become confrontational. I think there is the two styles of bloggers about, the issues of Linux. Those who just give you instructional, kind of guidance, technical guidance of some sort. Those who will tell you about Linux being a better platform for whatever reason. And there are those who will compare platforms and actually make fun of the competition's platform. And this is the type which kind of annoys Microsoft a bit more, and the trolls, basically. They will try to target these people. And this person has been haunted and taunted by some of the big so-called fans of Microsoft. And one of the reasons he was targeted is because he talks about the popularity of Linux, and he challenges some of those numbers, which represent the fraud from the Microsoft camp, or even the Apple camp to a certain degree. And one of the things he's been writing about recently was the situation in Germany when it comes to the distribution of and the deployment of Linux, especially in Munich. So there is a bit of a milestone. I think they're now halfway when it comes to converting all the machines they have to a Debian-based distribution, I believe. And he's been doing some rebuttals about the situation with regards to I think it's the Foreign Office or something like that, which was moving towards Linux, but basically had some thoughts about it halfway through, and wasn't given very compelling reasons for, going back to Windows, and you find all kinds of flaws in the way that they did that. So this is one main topic I found today. I should point out we did a show yesterday, so we don't really have many burning issues and important issues to deal with today, and that's probably.
Well, I mean, we have Rusty here who's going to put his unique take on some of the topics maybe that we've already covered. Just to clarify, I believe we're talking about Robert Pogson here. He's a Linux enthusiast since apparently the year 2000, that's what he says in his blog. And his profile, he describes himself as a physics guy, a computer geek, mushroom and berry picker, and a teacher. Blueberries and Debian, GNU/Linux are my favourite things. You can find him over at mrpogson.com. And I'll put that in the show notes for anybody who wants to read some of his work. He's a very nice chap, and he writes a very good article. So I just thought I'd throw that one in. Roy and Rusty, what I suggest we have a little chat about, because myself and Roy mentioned this yesterday, and I would appreciate Rusty's take on it, and it's the Skype issue. And it's something obviously that hit home for me and Roy because of the TechBytes show and using Skype originally for the recording of the show. So Rusty, I'm going to put you on the spot here and I'm going to throw you straight in with a question. What's your take on the Skype and Microsoft deal?
Oh, honestly, I'm not sure I trust Microsoft when they say they're going to keep cross-platform, like they say they're going to, because they named all the platforms that they considered cross-platform, and interestingly enough, Linux wasn't named in them. But I honestly think the Linux community is giving them the perfect excuse, if that is their plan, to justify that because left and right, the day that was announced, every Linux and open source community forum was instantly, how do I drop Skype and find something else? And they're going to use that as justification to go, hey, this Skype Linux thing that's technically in beta, we have no reason to continue development because they don't want it. They're going to use that as an excuse if that's their plan. I guarantee it.
I mean, I think my take on it was, whilst it was quite a shock that Microsoft bought Skype, certainly for me, I look at Skype as another means of communication anyway, and not a sort of be-all and end-all. So it wouldn't be a case of myself removing it overnight, because the one thing Skype has is the user base, and when there's a vast majority of users who maybe won't be using things like Linphone or the SIP protocol to speak over the net. So those users have to be accommodated. If I want to speak to them, I have to appreciate that they're going to be using Skype. So I think a case for myself anyway was that I'm going to be using now Skype as well as something else instead of a mere boycott of the package itself completely. Roy, your take if
Yeah, I was going to say something about refuting to some extent what Rusty has said. I think their strategy might be something like they have to try and accommodate those other platforms for the reason that they will be afraid of having competition from a new kind of vector. If people were to go somewhere else, perhaps even SIP and Asterisk and places like that, they would in fact become, instead of users of Skype, they would become the users of the competition. So they need to do enough to basically ensure people stay in their camp and in fact become part of the user base. I think that there are all kinds of circumstances and programs that they did this before to just basically do enough to keep the people inside the same camp without defecting to something else. And then that's even more dangerous in some regard because it gives people a false illusion of being belong and being included. One of the things I believe to some extent they did use this strategy on was the Silverlight situation, where they had this thing called Moonlight, which was just a bit of a mono, kind of a necessary and not very functional thing. And they could say, well, we are a cross-platform, and if you're using Linux, you shouldn't be against Silverlight because you can play it, even though you couldn't quite.
Oh, but there's a flaw in that argument because Moonlight wasn't allowed to use any of the DRM, and that was the primary reason.
Yes, of course, yeah. But they were trying to persuade people to not complain, for example, to the web host, to say something like, use something like Flash or use something like WebM or whatever. They would say something like, well, we provide for you, or Novell, we pay Novell to provide for you. So this is like fake support or minimal support or symbolic support. To just keep people with the agenda, or to keep them in a position where they cannot make the argument that they're being excluded. For antitrust purposes or whatever, they also need to do that, or at least they used to have to do that. I should point out that just about half an hour ago we completed a test where we were actually recording everything to a file from a SIP conversation. So we are actually moving at least parts of the show to complete 100% free software pipeline. So we won't be depending on any proprietary packages. No, we always even months ago we could get the SIP to work just fine, but the part of it which is actually putting this to file and ensuring we can apply the same filters, especially noise removal, that was the peril. But when Microsoft is going to buy Skype, we will have more of a reason to ferociously move in this direction and do that. So,
well, just briefly looking at a couple of my RSS feeds, I think a good group to pick on is probably the BBC. Just you might want to comment, you two. You might not want to say anything at all. This caught my eye today. Just actually come in. It's Lady Gaga. That I suppose you could call her a singer. Passes 10 million Twitter followers. So I don't know. Rusty, do you have any? I don't know much about the music scene, Rusty, and I certainly don't know much about the US scene.
I am not a Lady Gaga fan.
Is she American or is she British?
I honestly don't even know.
Oh, well, I'm certainly not one of those.
We'll have to ask a Lady Gaga fan.
Well, I think the listeners can safely say then that out of those 10 million followers, myself and Rusty are not two of them. So, the other thing that catches my eye, Sony has begun its relaunch of its doomed PlayStation Network, and apparently the